Girl, you've been bringing me food for 4 months now whenever the boss isn't looking. Let me pay you back for that kindness. Tomorrow, don't be the first one to open the diner. Show up late on purpose. Let the manager open the doors. I'll explain everything the day after tomorrow. Maya woke up 5 minutes before her alarm went off. It happened every single morning. For the past year and a half, her body had instinctively learned to wake up at 5:30, as if an internal guard wouldn't let her oversleep for even a second. She stood up carefully from the couch, trying not to let the springs creak, and tiptoed to the window. Outside, the night was still pitch black, with only the street lamp near the porch casting a yellowish glow on the snow-covered yard. Her mother was sleeping in the room behind the thin wall. Maya listened closely. Her breathing was steady and calm. Good. That meant the night had passed without a seizure. After the stroke, every peaceful night felt like a small miracle. 18 months ago, her mother, Mrs. Ruby Hawthorne, could still walk and talk clearly, even trying to help around the house. But a second stroke 3 months ago had left her bedridden. Now, her left side was paralyzed, her speech was slurred, and Maya had become more than just a daughter. She was a caregiver, a nurse, and a provider. Maya washed her face with ice-cold water. The hot water had been shut off yesterday, and they promised it would be back by evening. She quickly pulled on black jeans and a white blouse, sliding her feet into worn-out sneakers. She caught her reflection in the hallway mirror, a pale face, dark circles under her eyes, her hair gathered into a messy ponytail. She was 26 years old but looked 35. Maya grimaced and turned away. No time for vanity. There was only a bit of oatmeal and 2 eggs left in the fridge. She cooked the oats, left them in a bowl for her mom, and placed a note next to it. "Mama, heat this in the microwave. The pills are in the blue box. Take 2 after you eat. I'll be home at 3. Love you, Maya." Her mother couldn't always make out the letters. They often blurred or got tangled, but Maya wrote to her anyway, hoping today might be different. She threw on her old coat, wrapped a scarf around her neck, and stepped out. The elevator had been broken for 2 months, and they lived on the 4th floor, so she had to take the stairs. Outside, the Cleveland winter hit her hard. It was at least 5 degrees. The snow crunched under her feet, and the cold nipped at her nose. Maya quickened her pace. It was a 20-minute walk to the Rusty Spoon, the diner where she worked. She had to open it by 6 o'clock. The streets were empty, with only a few cars passing by, their headlights cutting through the darkness to reveal snowdrifts and bare trees. She walked the familiar route on autopilot, her mind elsewhere. She was thinking about how the boss promised her paycheck wouldn't come for another week, but her mother needed medicine tomorrow. It was a good thing she sometimes got tips. Yesterday, a man had left $5. It wasn't much, but it was something. The Rusty Spoon was located on the ground floor of an old brick building on the outskirts of the city. It used to be a regular storefront before the owner bought the adjacent space, tore down the walls, and turned it into a diner. It was spacious enough: 6 tables, a long bar counter, and a kitchen behind a partition. The interior was simple: wooden tables, checkered tablecloths, and framed photos of the city's skyline on the walls. Nothing fancy, but local folks from the nearby apartments kept the place busy. Maya pulled out her keys and opened the door. The air inside smelled like yesterday's gravy and something sweet, likely leftover cinnamon rolls. She flipped the switch and the room flooded with light. She hung her coat in the back room and tied on her apron. The work began immediately. Start the coffee machine, wipe the tables, set the chairs, and check the fridge. It was at least an hour of work before the 7 o'clock opening. As Maya was busy with the tables, someone tapped on the window. She jumped. Who would be here this early? She turned and saw a familiar figure. It was Silas Thorne, a homeless man who had been living in the nearby alley for the past few months. He was tall and hunched, wearing a tattered army jacket and a beanie that barely covered his graying hair. His face was weathered and red from the frost, but his eyes were sharp and clear, not bloodshot like many others on the street. There was something different about Silas, something attentive. Maya waved and pointed toward the back door. A minute later, Silas was standing at the service entrance, shivering. She quickly dashed to the kitchen, filled a plastic container with yesterday's beef stew, added 3 slices of bread, and 2 leftover muffins. The owner, Garrett Vance, strictly forbade giving away food. "It's a write-off! Everything has to be disposed of according to the rules," he would yell. He had caught her once with a bag of scraps, but she did it anyway. She had been feeding Silas for 4 months, ever since she first saw him scavenging in the dumpster behind the diner. She cracked the door open and handed him the container. Silas took it with both hands and nodded. "Thank you, girl. God bless you." "Don't worry about it, Mr. Thorne," Maya whispered. "Eat up while it's still warm." "The Lord will reward you for your kindness," he said, always with that old-fashioned, solemn tone. Maya was embarrassed at first, but she got used to it. Silas wasn't like the others. He didn't drink, didn't swear, and carried himself with dignity. Once she asked how he ended up on the street. He simply said, "Life happens," and never spoke of it again. "You stay safe out there," Maya said. "It's freezing today. Maybe find a shelter?" "I'll find a spot, don't you worry. You take care of yourself. How's your mother?" "Same as always. She needs meds, but money is tight." Silas looked at her for a long moment, as if he wanted to say something more, but he remained silent. He nodded once more and disappeared into the shadows of the yard. Maya closed the door and returned to the front. It was 5 minutes to 7. Time to open. The first customers arrived almost immediately. Old Mr. Henderson always wanted his black coffee and a bagel. Mrs. Gable from the next street over came in for a latte and a muffin. Then came the construction crew, 6 loud, hungry men. They ordered eggs, sausage, hash browns, and coffee. Maya was a whirlwind behind the counter. In the kitchen, Mama Louise was clattering with the pans. By 9 o'clock, the morning rush was in full swing. People were stopping in for breakfast on their way to work. The diner was nearly full. Maya was running orders, clearing dirty plates, and ringing up bills on an ancient cash register. Her hands moved on autopilot, but her brain was sluggish. She hadn't slept enough again. "Hey, waitress!" a man in a leather jacket barked. "This coffee is cold. What kind of service is this?" Maya walked over and looked at the cup. The coffee had been poured 3 minutes ago. It couldn't be that cold, but there was no point in arguing. "I'll replace it right away, sir. I'm sorry." "That's more like it. Probably too busy playing on your phone to notice your customers," he muttered. She grit her teeth, took the cup, and went to the kitchen. Mama Louise glanced at her. "They being rude again?" "I'm used to it," Maya sighed. "You got more patience than me, Maya. I would have told him where he could stick that cup." "I need the paycheck," Maya replied. She poured a fresh cup and brought it back. The man didn't even say thank you. He just went back to his phone. Maya stepped toward the window and caught her breath. Outside, the snow was falling, thick and wet, sticking to the glass. She wondered where Silas was. Did he find shelter? He'd eaten the stew, at least. At noon, the owner, Garrett Vance, arrived. He was a man in his 50s, large-bellied, wearing an expensive sheepskin coat and alligator skin boots. His face was red and puffy. His small eyes darted around the room looking for something to complain about. He walked up to the bar and glared at Maya. "Working hard today?" "Everything is under control, Mr. Vance. It's been busy since morning." "Yeah? Then where's the revenue?" He opened the register and flipped through the bills. "Too low. Why?" "People are just ordering breakfast specials. They aren't expensive." "Then sell them more. Push the desserts, the extra coffee. You're just standing there like a statue. I'm paying you to work, not to daydream." Maya stayed silent. Arguing with the boss was useless. He was never satisfied, always finding a reason to yell. He loved money more than anything. He counted every penny, pinched the wages, and wrote off supplies as if he were feeding an army when, in reality, half of it just spoiled and went in the trash. "And another thing," Vance said, scanning the room. "There's dust on this windowsill. See? I run my finger through it, and look, grime. Disgusting. I pay you all this money, and you can't do the simple things. I wiped it 2 days ago." "2 days ago? What about today? Your hands fall off? You want the customers sitting in filth?" Maya swallowed her pride. He paid her $15 an hour, hardly enough to survive, and he was always behind on payments. But there was no other work. She had tried looking, calling stores and offices, even factories. No luck, no experience, no degree, and a sick mother who needed constant care. Who would hire her? "I'll wipe it now," she said quietly. "See that you do, and move faster. I'm not running a charity here." He turned and stomped into the back office. Maya clenched her fist so hard her knuckles turned white. She breathed slowly, counting to 10. "Don't lose it. You need the money. Mama needs her meds. Everything else comes second." The day dragged on. The lunch rush came and went, followed by a lull. Maya managed to eat a piece of toast and some tea in the kitchen. She wasn't even hungry. Her stomach was tied in knots from exhaustion. Her legs were throbbing, and her back ached. She sat on a stool, leaned against the wall, and closed her eyes. Just 1 minute of rest. "Maya!" Mama Louise barked from the kitchen. "Orders up! Table 3!" She jumped up, grabbed a plate of grilled chicken, and ran. And so it went until evening. Rush, orders, customers. At 3 o'clock, her mother called. She slurred something into the phone, and Maya could barely make it out. "Medicine! Out!" Maya's heart skipped a beat. She ran to Vance's office. "Can I leave a little early today? My mom needs her prescription filled urgently." "Leave early? The shift is until 6. Who's going to cover for you?" "Please, Mr. Vance, my mom is sick. She's in a bad way." "Everyone's got problems, Maya. Look at me. Taxes, rent, payroll. You think it's easy? You work until the end of your shift, then go wherever you want. She'll be fine for a few hours. Don't ruin my schedule." Maya backed away, her eyes stung with tears, but she held them back. She went back to the floor and kept working. One thought circled her mind. Get there in time. She had to get to the pharmacy before it closed. If she didn't, her mother would spend the night without her blood pressure meds, and that was dangerous. Her pressure could spike, and another stroke could happen. At 6 o'clock sharp, she bolted out of the diner without even changing. She grabbed her coat and hit the street. The pharmacy was 10 minutes away if she ran. Maya ran, ignoring the icy patches on the sidewalk, nearly slipping but catching herself. She burst into the pharmacy, gasping for air. A young pharmacist was behind the counter, flipping through a magazine. "I need Capotine, 2 packs. "Got a prescription?" "Yes, right here." Maya handed over a crumpled piece of paper. The pharmacist took her time, looking it over, then walked into the back. Maya shifted from foot to foot, counting the seconds. The girl returned with 2 boxes. "That'll be $42. Maya pulled out her wallet and counted every cent. $43, all she had left until payday. She paid, grabbed the medicine, and ran home. Her mother was lying in bed, breathing heavily. Maya rushed to her, hugged her, and kissed her forehead. "It's okay, Mama. I have the medicine. I'm going to give it to you right now." She poured a glass of water and helped her take the pill. Her mother swallowed with difficulty, coughing. Maya rubbed her back, whispering, "Quiet now, everything's okay." Gradually, her breathing leveled out. She closed her eyes and drifted off. Maya sat on the edge of the bed and rested her head in her hands. She was so tired she couldn't feel her limbs. She wanted to lie down and not get up for a week, but she couldn't. Tomorrow was another work day. Another early wake-up call. Another walk in the dark. Another day of putting up with Garrett Vance and complaining customers. That evening, she heated up the leftover oatmeal and ate it without appetite. She cleaned the kitchen, helped her mom change, and settled her in for the night. Then she lay down on the couch, covering herself with an old quilt. She couldn't sleep. Her mind was racing. Money, medicine, work. How was she going to keep going? She thought of Silas. Strange old man. Homeless, but he had this inner strength. He never asked for anything. He only thanked her. He looked at her as if he could see right through her. Sometimes Maya felt it was easier to talk to him than to anyone else. He didn't judge, didn't give unsolicited advice. He just listened. The next day was a repeat of the last, the early wake-up, the dark walk, the opening. Maya brought Silas food, beef stew and a cornbread muffin this time. He took it and thanked her, but there was something new in his eyes, a flicker of anxiety. Maya wanted to ask him what was wrong, but Mama Louise called her from the kitchen. That evening, as her shift ended, Maya looked out the window. Silas was standing by the dumpster, but he wasn't looking through it as usual. He was just staring at the diner. He watched it for a long time, then turned and walked away. It was strange. The days blurred together. Work, home, Mama. Work again. Maya was holding on by a thread. One day, she went down to the basement storage to get a bag of flour. The bags were stacked in the far corner on old wooden pallets. As she was dragging one out, she tripped and fell to her knees. It hurt like hell. She stood up, rubbing her leg, and noticed something behind the pallets. She moved one aside. Hidden there were 3 more bags, thick, blue, tightly sealed. Maya touched them. There was something powdery inside. Strange. She tried to untie the cord, but it was too tight. Whatever, she thought. Probably just extra supplies the boss is hoarding. She put the flour back, covered the blue bags with the pallets, and went upstairs. She didn't think much of it. That was a mistake. A few more days passed. Maya had almost forgotten about the bags. Her head was full of other problems. Her paycheck was late again. Vance just waved her off. Next week, next week. But Mama needed new meds. The doctor had prescribed heart supplements, and they were expensive. Maya counted every nickel, saving her tips, but it still wasn't enough. That evening, she stayed late. Mama Louise had left at 5, and Jordan, the manager, left at 6. Vance had stopped by briefly, grumbled about expenses, and sped off in his SUV. Maya was alone. She had to close out, wipe the tables, and mop the floors. She worked in silence, lost in thought. When she finished, it was almost 7 o'clock. Outside, the twilight had deepened, and the street lamps were glowing. Maya took off her apron, put on her coat, and packed some leftover rice and 2 cabbage pies for Silas. She went out through the back service entrance. Silas was sitting on an old crate by the dumpster, smoking a hand-rolled cigarette. He saw Maya and stood up. His face was grave, almost grim. He didn't smile like he usually did. He just nodded. "Here you go, Mr. Thorne," Maya said, handing him the container. "Still hot." "Thank you, girl." He took the food, but didn't open it. He looked her straight in the eye. "Maya, I need to talk to you." She tensed up. She had never heard him use that tone before. Serious, almost professional. "Is something wrong?" Silas looked around as if checking for witnesses. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Listen to me carefully. Tomorrow morning, you are not to be the first one to open that diner. Do you hear me? Don't come in early. Show up late on purpose. Let someone else open the door." Maya blinked, confused. "What? Why?" "Don't ask me why right now. I'll explain everything the day after tomorrow, I promise. But tomorrow, do not be the one to open that door. It's important. Very important." There was such urgency in his voice that Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "Mr. Thorne, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "Do you trust me?" She thought about it for a second. It was a strange question. Did she trust a homeless man she'd known for 4 months? But something deep inside said yes, she did. She didn't know why, but she trusted him. "I trust you," she nodded. "Then do as I ask. Tomorrow, don't be the first one there. Be late. Make up an excuse. Tell them your alarm didn't go off, or your mother had a rough night. Any lie will do, but let someone else turn that key. Not you." Maya stared at him, trying to understand. Silas was more serious than she had ever seen him. In his eyes, she saw fear, but also a fierce determination. "Okay," she said slowly. "I'll try to be late. But you promise to explain?" "I promise. I'll tell you everything the day after tomorrow." He turned and walked away toward the abandoned warehouse where he usually slept. Maya stood in the yard, clutching the keys to the diner. The cold was biting, but she didn't move. She wondered what that was about, why such a strange request, and why she suddenly felt so afraid. All the way home, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Something was wrong. She remembered how Silas had been watching the diner lately, and she remembered those blue bags in the basement. What was in them? Why had Vance been so nervous lately? He'd been coming in more often, checking things, whispering on the phone. At home, her mother was already asleep. Maya quietly undressed and lay on the couch, but sleep wouldn't come. She tossed and turned, listening to the sounds outside. Her mind was a mess. Silas's voice echoed, "Don't be the first one." Why? What could happen? She remembered his hands, strong, with thick fingers, working hands. And his posture. There was something military about it. His back was straight, his walk precise, despite his years on the street. Who was he? Where did he come from? Toward morning, she finally drifted off, only to be jolted awake by her alarm at 5:30. She got up, washed, and dressed. But as she was about to leave, she remembered Silas's words. She stood in the hallway, torn. On one hand, the mysterious request of an old man. On the other, her job. If she was late, Vance would throw a fit, maybe even fine her, and she desperately needed the money. But something inside whispered, "Listen to him. Trust him." Maya stood there for 2 minutes, then decisively took off her coat, lay back down on the couch, and set her alarm for 7 o'clock. She would be an hour late. Hours. Let Jordan open the place. She was the manager, and had the keys too. Maya closed her eyes, but she didn't sleep. She just lay there, counting the minutes. Her heart was pounding. Meanwhile, Silas hadn't slept for 2 nights. He was sitting in the basement of the abandoned warehouse, wrapped in an old blanket. A single candle flickered nearby. Silas watched the flame and thought. 2 nights ago, he couldn't sleep. His back was aching, and a cold was setting in. He was lying on his mattress when he heard a car door slam. Silas tensed up. No one came into this yard at 3 in the morning. He stood up and peeked out the basement window. A black SUV was idling outside. He recognized it as Garrett Vance's car. 3 men got out. Vance, in his sheepskin coat, and 2 others, tall, broad-shouldered men in leather jackets. He couldn't see their faces in the dark, but their movements were quick and professional. Silas's instincts flared. He hadn't served 8 years in the army for nothing. You don't forget things like that. He'd been in the combat engineers, explosives, and demolition. His nose for danger was still sharp. He crouched by the window and watched. The 3 men walked to the diner. Vance opened the door with his key. They went inside but didn't turn on the lights. 5 minutes later, Vance came out, got in his car, and drove off. The other 2 stayed inside. Silas put on his jacket and crept out of the basement. He moved silently, hugging the shadows until he reached the diner. He knew there was a service door on the side. He got close. The door was slightly ajar, likely left that way so they could slip out unnoticed. Silas stood against the wall and listened. Voices drifted from inside, low but clear. "It'll trigger tomorrow morning," a deep, raspy voice said. "You sure?" the younger one asked. 100%. The device is under the threshold. Opening the front door sets it off. It won't be a massive blast, but it'll be enough. The gas main is right there. They'll write it off as a leak, and the waitress is always the first one here. Every day at 6 o'clock, she opens it alone. Vance checked. The younger man chuckled. "Kind of a shame. She's young." "Don't be stupid," the raspy voice replied. She stumbled onto the stash in the basement. Vance saw her poking around. "Sooner or later, she'll figure it out and talk. We don't need witnesses. This is the cleanest way. An explosion means an accident. The cops will poke around, find nothing, and close the file. We'll move the product before the real investigation starts. Clean and simple." Silas felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. They were going to kill Maya. The girl who had fed him for 4 months without asking for a thing. The kind, struggling girl with the sick mother. He backed away from the door, his heart hammering in his chest. He had to do something. But if he went to the cops, who would believe a homeless vet? They'd think he was crazy, or worse, involved. He went back to his basement and sat on his mattress, thinking. He remembered everything he knew about military tactics, about explosives, about how these devices worked. He was a sapper, a good one. He'd cleared mines and IEDs in the Gulf. His hands remembered. His head remembered. A plan formed by morning. He would wait for those 2 to leave. Then he would warn Maya to stay away, and he would call the police anonymously. He'd tell them there was a bomb in the diner. The bomb squad would come, disarm it, and let the detectives handle the rest. But he had to be careful. If those two saw him, they'd kill him without a second thought. Around 5 in the morning, the men left the diner. Silas watched from his window. They closed the service door, got into an unmarked black car, and drove away. Silas waited another 30 minutes, then went out. He checked the front door from the outside. Nothing visible. The device was definitely under the threshold inside. Clever. He went back to the warehouse and pulled out an old cell phone he hadn't used in years. He'd bought it 3 years ago when he still had a little money. It was dusty, and the battery was nearly dead, but it had enough juice for one call. Silas dialed 911. Emergency services. What is your location? The Rusty Spoon Diner on West Avenue, Building 12. There's an explosive device set to go off when the door opens. Check it now. Sir, wait, who is this? Silas hung up, pulled out the SIM card, and hid the phone. Now all he could do was wait and hope Maya listened to his warning. He remembered her face, pale, tired, but kind. She never looked at him with pity, only with respect. She always asked how he was doing, always brought him food while risking her own job. People like her were rare. Silas couldn't let her die. It would be a betrayal. He had betrayed too much in his life, himself, his family, his oath. But today, he could fix one thing. He could save one life. Maybe then his own life would finally have meaning again. He sat in the dark and prayed. He hadn't prayed in 20 years, but now he whispered the words his grandmother had taught him. Lord, have mercy. Save her. Maya woke up at 7 o'clock to her phone ringing. It was Jordan, the manager. Maya, where are you? Why didn't you open up? I've been standing out here for half an hour. I'm so sorry, Jordan, Maya said, her voice sounding appropriately guilty. My alarm didn't go off, and Mama had a rough night. I'm leaving now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Maya, this is irresponsible. I can't be doing your job for you every morning. I know, I'm sorry. It won't happen again. Jordan grumbled and hung up. Maya got up, dressed, and left the house. She walked slowly, without rushing. It was a strange feeling, as if time had slowed down. She thought about Silas's words. What did he mean? When she turned onto West Avenue, she saw a cluster of cars around the diner. Police cruisers, an ambulance, a fire truck. A crowd had gathered on the sidewalk, whispering and pointing. Maya's heart raced. She started running. She pushed through the crowd and saw a familiar face. Old Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson, what happened? The old man turned, saw Maya, and his eyes went wide. Maya, you're alive, thank God. What do you mean? What's going on? There was a bomb in the diner, right under the door. The police showed up out of nowhere. The bomb squad said someone called it in anonymously. They just finished disarming it. Maya felt her knees buckle. A bomb under the door. She was supposed to be the one to open that door. Jordan, is she okay? She's fine. She had just walked up to the door when the cops swarmed the place. They cordoned off the whole block. Men in suits went in there and spent an hour working. They say the device was set to blow the moment the door opened. Maya sank onto the sidewalk. Her head was spinning. Silas. He knew. He warned her. A young police officer in uniform walked over with a notepad. Do you work here, ma'am? She nodded, unable to speak. The officer knelt beside her. What's your name? Maya Hawthorne. Are you the one who usually opens the diner? Yes, every day at 6. The officer wrote something down and looked at her closely. Why were you late today? Maya hesitated. Should she tell him about Silas? But what if they arrested him? What if they thought he was involved? My alarm didn't go off. I overslept. The officer narrowed his eyes, clearly skeptical, but he didn't press her. He wrote some more. You're lucky. If you'd been on time and turned that key, you'd be in the back of that ambulance right now. Or worse. You're lucky as hell, Maya. Maya covered her face with her hands. Tears started flowing, from fear, from relief, from everything. The officer awkwardly patted her shoulder. It's okay. You're alive. That's what matters. He stood up and went back to his colleagues. Maya stayed there, hugging her knees. Around her, the crowd buzzed, radios crackled, and the city moved on. But she could only think of one thing. Silas saved her life. He found out about the danger, and he saved her. A little while later, another car pulled up, a plain gray sedan. Two men in plain clothes got out. One was older, in his 50s with a mustache. The other was younger, in a leather jacket. They showed their badges to the officer and spoke for a minute. The older one looked at Maya and nodded. He walked over to her. "Maya Hawthorne? I'm Detective Holloway, Major Crimes. Can I ask you a few questions?" Maya nodded. The detective pulled out a recorder. "You work at the Rusty Spoon?" "Yes, waitress." "How long?" 18 months. "The owner is Garrett Vance. How often did you interact with him?" "He came in almost every day, checked the books, checked the register." "Did you notice anything unusual lately? Strange visitors? Conversations?" Maya thought back. She remembered how nervous Vance had been, the constant phone calls, the secret meetings in the back room. "There were some men," she said slowly. "Strangers. They'd come in after hours, through the back door. I never saw their faces clearly. They avoided the main room." "How often?" "Maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks." Detective Holloway glanced at his partner. "Maya, have you ever been in the basement storage?" "Yes, of course. That's where we keep the flour and the dry goods." "Did you see anything out of the ordinary down there?" Maya remembered the blue bags. There were bags, behind the old pallets, big blue ones. "I found them by accident a few days ago. I wanted to see what was inside, but they were sealed tight. I figured it was just extra stock." The detective leaned in closer. "When was this?" 5 days ago. Maybe a week. Did you tell anyone?" "No one." "Did the owner see you find them?" Maya tensed up. The day she found the bags, she had come upstairs and run right into Vance. He was standing by the door, looking at her with a strange, intense look. He asked what she was doing. She said she was getting flour. He nodded and left, but after that he started looking at her differently. He was always on his phone, whispering in the yard. "I think he might have seen me coming out of there," she said quietly. Holloway stood up and looked at the diner, then back at Maya. "Maya, you were in a lot of danger. Those bags were filled with heroin, a massive shipment. The diner was being used as a distribution hub. Vance and his partners were moving product through here, hiding it in the basement. When he realized you might have seen it, he decided to get rid of the witness. He set that bomb to look like a gas leak accident." Maya turned pale. They wanted to kill her just because she saw some bags. "But how did you know about the bomb?" "An anonymous call came in at 5:30 this morning. A male voice told us exactly where it was and how it was rigged. We moved fast, called in the squad, and disarmed it 10 minutes before you were supposed to be there." Silas. It was Silas. Maya had no doubt. He found out and he called. He saved her. "Do you know who called?" she asked. The detective shook his head. "Burner phone. The SIM was tossed. No way to trace it, but whoever it was, they saved your life." Maya stood up and looked around. She had to find Silas. She had to thank him, find out how he knew. She apologized to the detective, said she'd be right back, and ran to the abandoned warehouse. The basement where Silas lived was empty. The mattress, the blanket, the bags of rags, they were all there. But Silas was gone. She ran through the yard, checked behind the garages, looked by the dumpsters. Nothing. It was as if he had vanished. She went back to the diner and found Detective Holloway. "Can I ask one more thing? The caller, can you find him?" Holloway looked at her curiously. "Do you have an idea who it was?" Maya hesitated. Should she tell him? But Silas was homeless. They could blame him for anything if they knew he was watching the place. What if they thought he was an accomplice? She couldn't risk it. Silas saved her. She wouldn't betray him. "No," she lied. "I just wanted to say thank you." Holloway nodded. "If you remember anything else, call me." He handed her a business card. "What happens to the diner now?" Maya asked. "We're searching the place now. Once we process the drugs, Vance is going to jail for a long time. The diner will be closed until the investigation is over." "And me? I'm out of a job." Holloway shrugged. "I'm afraid so. But you'll be eligible for compensation. You're a victim and a key witness. The state has funds for this, Plus, if you testify, there are additional payments. Maya nodded. The job was gone, but her life was hers. That was everything. The next few hours were a blur of statements and protocols. Maya told them everything she knew about Vance, the visitors, and the bags. The investigator wrote down every word. Then Holloway took her inside the diner. He needed her to show him exactly where she found the bags. They went down to the basement. The bomb squad had finished, and the device was gone. Maya led them to the far corner and pointed at the pallets. Right there, behind those crates. The officers moved the pallets. 4 blue bags were sitting there. An officer in gloves sliced one open. White powder in clear plastic bricks spilled out. Holloway whistled. Pure heroin, at least 20 kilos. That's a life sentence right there. He pulled out his phone, made a call, and then turned to Maya. Your testimony is going to put him away for good. Thank you for your cooperation. Maya was let go around 3 in the afternoon. She walked home. She didn't have money for the bus, and she needed the walk to process everything. They had tried to kill her. To Garrett Vance, she was nothing. Just a waitress, easily replaced. Her life meant nothing to him. If it weren't for Silas, she'd be in the morgue right now or mangled in a hospital bed. She stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, leaning against a brick wall. Her hands were shaking. Only now, with the adrenaline fading, did the horror of it hit her. Tears streamed down her face. She sobbed quietly, trying not to draw attention from passers-by. Then she wiped her face with her sleeve and kept walking. Mama was waiting. She had to tell her what happened, calm her down, and figure out what came next. Her mother was in bed, watching TV. She saw Maya and tried to smile. Her left side remained frozen. "Maya," she whispered. Maya sat beside her and took her hand. "Everything's okay, Mama. I'm home." "You cry?" "No, it's just cold outside. My eyes are watering." Mrs. Ruby looked at her doubtfully but didn't push. Maya patted her hand, went to the kitchen, and heated up some soup. She fed her mother, gave her her pills, and then sat by the window, looking out at the yard. Where was Silas? Why did he disappear? Maybe he was afraid the police would find him and ask questions, or maybe he just felt his job was done. She remembered his face when he warned her, serious, even stern. His eyes were clear and sober, not the eyes of an addict, but the eyes of a soldier. Yes, that was it. A soldier. She realized then that Silas wasn't just some guy on the street. He had a story. He had a past. She decided she had to find him. She had to find him, thank him, and help him if she could. That evening, Detective Holloway called. "Maya, I wanted to let you know that we picked up Garrett Vance. He's been charged with drug trafficking and attempted murder. We're still looking for his associates, but we'll get them. Your testimony was vital. And about the compensation. You need to come to the district attorney's office to file the paperwork. You're looking at a significant sum, at least $50,000 for emotional distress and cooperation." $50,000. Maya nearly choked. That was a fortune to her. With that money, she could buy her mother's medicine for years, pay off their debts, and even save for the future. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. You earned it." Maya hung up and sat on the couch. Her head was spinning. This morning, she almost died. This afternoon, she learned she was targeted for murder. And tonight, she learned she was getting money that would solve almost all her problems. And it was all thanks to Silas, the man she couldn't find. The following days were busy. Maya went to offices, signed papers, and gave more statements. The investigation was moving fast. Vance was in custody, and the 2 men who rigged the bomb were caught shortly after. The whole ring was dismantled. They had been using the diner as a hub for 2 years. Maya learned that the anonymous call really did save her. The experts confirmed that the bomb was rigged to the door handle. The moment she had turned the key and pulled, it would have detonated. The blast would have been fatal. Every evening, Maya went back to that alley, checking the basement, but Silas never returned. His things were gone, the mattress, the blankets. It was like he never existed. She asked around, but no one knew where he went. She had almost given up hope when, 2 weeks later, she was walking past a bus stop and saw a familiar figure. Tall, gray-haired, wearing that same ragged jacket. Silas was sitting on the bench, staring into the distance. Maya ran to him and stopped right in front of him. He looked up, and a flash of surprise crossed his face, followed by a warm, genuine smile. "Girl," he said softly. "Mr. Thorne?" Maya was nearly crying with relief. "Where have you been? I've been looking everywhere for you. You saved my life." He stood up and put a hand on her shoulder. "Easy now. Everything's all right. You're alive. That's what matters." "How did you know about the bomb?" Silas sighed and looked around, then patted the bench. "Sit down. I'll tell you." They sat together. Silas spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. "I saw them rigging it. I heard them talking. I knew they were going to kill you. I called the cops, then I left. I didn't want them questioning me. No one trusts a man on the street. They might have thought I was in on it." "But why did you come back?" "I wanted to make sure you were okay, that it was over." Maya looked at him, at the deep wrinkles on his weathered face, his tired but intelligent eyes. She knew she had to know the truth. "Mr. Thorne, who are you? How did you know how to spot something like that? A regular person wouldn't have known." He was silent for a long time. Then quietly, "I was a combat engineer, 8 years in the Army, 2 tours in the Gulf. I cleared mines, IEDs, you name it. That's how I knew." "And how did you end up here?" Silas's jaw tightened. He was silent again, but then the words started pouring out. "My wife died. Cancer. I was deployed, and I didn't get to say goodbye. I started drinking, got discharged. My son turned his back on me, said I was a disgrace. I lost the house, drank through the savings, woke up at a Greyhound station with nothing. Been out here 4 years." Maya took his hand, old, calloused, and trembling. "You saved my life, Mr. Thorne. I am so grateful to you. I'm going to help you, I promise." He looked at her, surprised. "Help me? How?" "I don't know yet, but I'll find a way." 3 days later, Maya met with Detective Halloway again. When the formalities were over, she gathered her courage. "Detective, if someone helps solve a crime, can they get help from the state?" Halloway raised an eyebrow. "Depends on the situation. Who are we talking about?" Maya hesitated, then went for it. "The anonymous caller. The one who saved me. I know who he is." Halloway sat up straight. "Who?" "His name is Silas Thorne. He's a veteran, a combat engineer. He was living in the alley near the diner. He saw everything and called it in. He's the reason I'm standing here." Halloway frowned. "A veteran. That changes things. If he really helped break the case, we can get him a reward from the department. Plus, if he's a vet, there are programs, rehab, housing. I need to check his records." Maya felt a surge of hope. "Can you really help him?" "If he gives a formal statement and confirms his role, yes. Bring him in. We'll talk." Maya left the station and immediately called the number Silas had finally given her. "Mr. Thorne, it's Maya. I need to see you. It's important." He was hesitant. "I don't want trouble with the law, Maya." "Please, Mr. Thorne. You saved my life. Let me do this for you. The detective promised to help. You could have a chance at a new life." There was a long silence, then a heavy sigh. "All right, I'll come." They met an hour later at the station. Silas was in the same jacket, but he'd tried to clean up, shaved and combed his hair. Maya took his arm and led him inside. Detective Halloway met them in his office. He looked Silas over and nodded. "Take a seat. Full name?" "Silas Thorne, born 1962. Halloway took down the details, then looked up. "Maya tells me you warned her and called the tip in. Tell me exactly what happened that night." Silas spoke slowly, giving every detail. He described the SUV, the men, the conversation he overheard. He explained why he knew it was an explosive and why he called. Halloway listened intently, taking notes. When Silas finished, the detective asked, "You have your discharge papers?" Silas shook his head. "Lost them years ago. Lost everything." Halloway made a call, spoke to someone for a few minutes, gave Silas's social security number, and hung up. He looked at Silas. "We'll verify through the VA. If it checks out, we'll get your papers replaced. In the meantime, we need your official statement on the record." Silas gave his statement and signed the papers. Halloway shook his hand. "Thank you for the tip. Without that call, this girl would be dead. You're a hero." Silas looked away, embarrassed. "I just did what I had to do. Regardless, the department will reward you. There's a fund for this, at least $10,000. And since you're a veteran, I can get you into a transitional housing program and eventually a permanent VA residence. You'll have a roof, food, and medical care." Silas looked up. For the first time, hope flickered in his eyes. "Really?" "Give me a week. I'll get the paperwork in order." A week later, Holloway called Maya. He sounded pleased. "Maya, good news. Silas Thorne's record is clean. He was a highly decorated engineer, discharged for medical reasons after an injury. I've secured his placement in a veterans rehab center. In a month, he'll move into permanent housing. And his reward check for $120,000 is being processed." Maya wanted to scream with joy. "Thank you. Thank you so much." She called Silas and told him. He was quiet for a long time. Then his voice broke. "Girl, I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," she said. "You saved my life. Now it's my turn." A week after that, Maya's compensation came through. $85,000. She looked at the numbers in her bank account and couldn't believe it. She'd never seen that much money in her life. The first thing she did was buy her mother 6 months' worth of medicine. She paid off the rent, the utilities, and bought her mother a new orthopedic bed. She hired a visiting nurse to come by for a few hours a day. The doctor said regular therapy would help her regain some movement. Then she sat at her table with a notebook and did the math. She had $60,000 left. She could save it. Or... Maya remembered her old dream. She had always wanted her own place. A small cafe where she was the boss, not the waitress. A place with good people, good food, and a warm atmosphere. Not a front for criminals, but a real community spot. She started looking. She called agencies, looked at listings, and found a small space on the ground floor of a building on the edge of town. It used to be a little bakery that closed down. The rent was reasonable, $2,000 a month. Maya went to see it. It was small, maybe 500 square feet, but it was clean and bright. It had plumbing, a kitchen area, and room for 4 tables. She calculated the costs: rent, renovation, equipment, supplies. It would take about $40,000. She'd have $20,000 left for emergencies. Maya signed the lease. For the next 3 weeks, she worked non-stop. She painted the walls herself, put up wallpaper, scrubbed the floors. She bought old tables and chairs from a thrift store, sanded them down, and painted them white. She hung light curtains and ordered a sign for the front. The Kind Heart Cafe. Silas helped her. He was already in the rehab center, getting treatment and getting his life back on track. But he came by almost every day. He fixed the outlets, put up shelves, and painted. He worked in silence, his hands moving with the precision of a man used to building things. "Mr. Thorne, you're helping me so much," Maya said one day. "I don't know how to pay you back." He smiled. "You already did. You gave me my life back. For 4 years I was a nobody. A ghost people walked past. You fed me. You talked to me like a human being. You reminded me that I was still useful. That's worth more than any check." Maya hugged him tight. He patted her back, then went back to work. A month later, the cafe opened. It was quiet and humble. Maya baked cornbread, made stew, prepared salads, and set the tables. She lit small candles and put a sign on the door. "Grand opening, first 10 customers eat for free." The first to walk in was old Mr. Henderson. He saw Maya and gave her a huge grin. "Maya, look at you, your own place." "Come on in, Mr. Henderson. Have a seat." Soon, other neighbors and strangers started trickling in. By evening, all 4 tables were full. Maya ran the orders, smiling, talking to guests, feeling like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Her mother was sitting on a high stool at the counter. Maya had designed a special spot for her. She couldn't move much, but she could take orders and ring up sales on a simple iPad system. She tried so hard, and though her speech was still a bit slow, the customers were patient and kind. Some even came just to chat with her, older women from the neighborhood who knew about her illness and wanted to offer support. Business was slow at first. The first few months were tough, and the money barely covered the food and the rent. Maya was up at 5, buying produce at the market, cooking, serving, and cleaning. She'd collapse at night, exhausted, but she was happy. It was her place. She didn't have to answer to anyone. Gradually, regulars started appearing. People talked about the cafe, how the food was delicious, the prices were fair, and the owner was kind. The revenue grew. After 3 months, Maya was finally able to start saving a little. One day, a young man walked in. He was in his 30s, wearing a clean shirt and jeans, carrying a box of samples. He introduced himself as Elias Penrose, a local produce supplier. "I can offer you top-quality fruits and vegetables at a fair price," he said. Maya looked at the samples. The tomatoes were deep red and ripe. The cucumbers were crisp, the apples fragrant and clear. "Where's this from?" "Local farms. I go out and pick them myself. No chemicals, all natural." "And the prices?" Elias told her. Maya did the math. It was cheaper than the market, and the quality was far better. "All right, let's give it a try." That was the start of their partnership. Elias brought fresh produce twice a week. Maya was impressed. They started talking more. Elias was an interesting man. He talked about the farmers he worked with and his dreams for his business. He had a small outfit, 2 trucks and a few contracts with local eateries, but he wanted to expand, to open a chain of eco-friendly markets. Maya listened and asked questions. She liked the way he talked, with passion, with fire in his eyes. He wasn't just in it for the money. He believed in what he was doing, just like she did. One day, Elias stayed a bit longer. He helped her unload the crates, then sat at a table. "Can I get a coffee?" "Of course." Maya poured him a cup and set it down. "You want to sit for a minute?" She hesitated. She had a lot of work, but something told her to sit. Elias took a sip and looked at her. "Always wanted your own place?" "Always. But I didn't think it would happen." "How did it happen?" Maya told him the story, short but honest. The job advances, the bomb, Silas, the compensation. Elias listened intently, never interrupting. "You're strong," he said when she finished. "Not many people could have handled all that." "I didn't have a choice. I had to survive." Surviving is one thing. Building something of your own out of nothing is another. You're incredible, Maya. Maya blushed. It had been a long time since anyone had complimented her like that. Elias finished his coffee and stood up. "I have to go, but can I stop by again? Not for business, just to talk?" "Of course," Maya smiled. From that day on, Elias came by more often. Sometimes in the morning before his rounds, sometimes in the evening when her shift ended. They drank coffee and talked about life, plans, and dreams. Maya talked about her mother and the struggles of running the cafe. Elias shared his own stresses. Business wasn't always easy. There were debts and supplier issues. Gradually, a bond formed. Not romantic at first, just a deep human connection. They understood each other. One day, Elias arrived with a bouquet of daisies, simple wild ones. He handed them to Maya. "This is for being you." Maya took the flowers and held them close. Tears pricked her eyes. "Thank you, Elias." "Maya, I want to say, I like being around you. You're special. You're kind, you're strong, you're real. I haven't met anyone like you in a long time." She looked at him and saw the sincerity in his eyes. She realized she liked him too, very much. "I like being with you too." That was the beginning of their story. They didn't rush. They built their relationship slowly. They walked in the evenings after the cafe closed, went to the movies, and spent time in the park. Elias met Maya's mother, and she took to him immediately. She could tell he wouldn't hurt her daughter. 6 months later, Elias proposed, not in a fancy restaurant, but right there in the cafe, at the table where they always sat. He pulled out a small box and opened it. Inside was a simple ring with a small stone. "Maya, I want to be with you forever. Will you marry me?" She looked at him, then at the ring, and felt her heart swell with happiness. "Yes, Elias. Yes." The wedding was small, held in the cafe among friends and family. The tables were pushed together and decorated with flowers. They baked pies and shared a meal. Maya's mother sat at the head of the table smiling. Her condition had improved significantly over the year. She had even learned to speak more clearly. The guest of honor was Silas. He had moved into his permanent VA residence 3 months prior. He was sober, healthy, and looked like a different man. He wore his old dress uniform, which the VA had helped him recover, with his medals pinned to his chest. When everyone was gathered, Silas stood up and raised his glass. The room went quiet. "I want to say a few words," he began. His voice was steady and strong. "I've lived a hard life. I've seen war, I've felt loss, and I've hit rock bottom. For 4 years I was a ghost, a homeless old man that people stepped over. I lost hope, I lost faith in people, and I lost faith in myself. And then one day, a girl who was barely making it herself started bringing me food, not out of pity, but out of kindness. She talked to me like a man. She didn't walk past, and when trouble came, I realized I couldn't let her die. This girl gave me back my dignity, and I saved her life. We saved each other." He paused, swallowing hard. There were tears in his eyes. "Maya, Elias, I wish you nothing but happiness. Take care of each other, and remember, kindness always comes back. It always finds its way home." The guests cheered and clapped. Maya walked over to Silas and hugged him tight. He patted her head and whispered, "Be happy, girl." After the wedding, life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Maya and Elias rented a 2-bedroom apartment nearby, and Mrs. Ruby moved in with them. Maya still cared for her, but they had help now. Elias had hired a caregiver for half the day. The cafe was thriving. Elias helped with the supplies and the books. They were a team. A year later, they opened a second small cafe in the next neighborhood, then a third. The business grew steadily, built on the same principles as the first. Silas worked as their security consultant. He came by once a week, checked the premises, made sure the exits were clear and the alarms were working. Maya paid him a small salary, but for Silas, it wasn't about the money. He felt needed. He felt useful. One evening, the 3 of them were sitting in the first cafe, Maya, Elias, and Silas, drinking tea and eating pie. Maya said, "You know, sometimes I wonder, what would have happened if that bomb hadn't been there?" "You'd still be working for that crook," Elias said, "breaking your back for pennies. And I'd still be in that basement," Silas added, "drinking myself to death. I probably wouldn't have made it another year." Maya shook her head. "Fate is a strange thing. A terrible event turned into our salvation." "It wasn't fate," Silas corrected her. "It was kindness. Your kindness started the whole thing. You fed me without expecting anything back. I paid you back by saving you. You helped me get on my feet. Now I help you. This is what life is supposed to be. People looking out for one another." Elias nodded. "The old man is right. Kindness always returns." Maya took their hands, Silas's wrinkled, warm hand and Elias's strong, steady one. She squeezed them tight. "Thank you both for everything." They sat together, talking about the future. Outside, the snow was falling, quiet and soft. Somewhere out there, the city was moving, busy, harsh, and sometimes unfair. But here, inside the kind heart, there was only warmth, comfort, and love. Maya looked at the 2 most important men in her life, the old man who had become like a father, and the husband she was building a future with. She realized that life is hard, but it is beautiful because there is room for good, and that good, once planted, will always grow and return 100-fold. 2 years later, Maya and Elias had a daughter. They named her Hope. They asked Silas to be her godfather. The old man cried when they told him. "Me? But I'm just—" "You're our savior," Maya said firmly, "and our friend. No one else could do it." At the baptism, Silas held little Hope in his arms, looking at her with such tenderness that it took Maya's breath away. The old warrior who had seen war and lost everything had finally found a family again. Maybe not by blood, but definitely by heart. And the Kind Heart Cafe kept running. People came in, tired, cold, and lonely, and they left warmed, fed, and with a little more faith that there was still goodness in the world. On the wall hung a small plaque that Maya had put up on the very first day. Kindness, once sown, will always return, and it was the absolute truth. If you liked my story and want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me, you can do it through Super Thanks. It would mean a lot. In the comments, tell me which city you're watching from and what time it is, so I can see how far my story reaches. I've added 2 more life stories on the screen just for you. Click one now and let's keep spending time together. Much love, see you soon.